different in that, yes, I will brag about the companies that worked out. Thank you very much. It doesn't always work out, so when it does work out, we try to use it as free marketing material. But what I want to do today is I want each and every one of you to be able to walk out of this door with the beginning of a strategy. The reason why I'm saying this is there are a lot of good companies out here, and there are a lot of companies, period, out here. I'm sure you'll agree that if you take a look at enough companies, your head is going to start to spin. And you're going to start confusing story A with story B with whatever you had for lunch yesterday, and it's going to get a little bit too much. And then there's the question of, okay, which commodity do you follow? And do you have the time to actually learn about what the company is trying to achieve? Is management following through, et cetera, et cetera? There are too many variables in this business. So I have been looking at 10 baggers. I report on news on a daily basis in this industry, and I try to focus on the small companies. Because it's all fine and good when you're taking a look at the big producers, the big companies that have already ran out. I try to focus on the stories that people haven't heard of yet, including myself. And when I look at 10 baggers, which is the big prize, there are some different categories that present themselves over and over again. So I'd like to tell you what these 6 different categories are of companies that usually have a shot, or situations that happen that will give you a shot at a 10 bagger potential. I do want to preface this by saying finding a 10 bagger is kind of like dating. There's enough young people in the room, so you're going to get what I'm trying to say here. I'm not including myself, I'm way past that. If you really, really are searching for something, you're not going to find it, right? It's usually when you just filter things through and decide what you have conviction on, and if it makes sense, you hold it for long enough, then a 10 bagger naturally happens. I have not planned any of my 10 baggers, they kind of just happened, but I knew they were good companies according to what I, as an investor, could bet on and be happy holding. And the second part is the most important part, to be happy enough to hold the company and not be second guessing myself. So this is the track record of my last talk last year. I mentioned a few of these companies. Obviously, my portfolio does not look like this because, unlike yourselves, I am not as disciplined, and I don't buy the very bottom and sell the very top. But if you had bought everything that I mentioned last year and held it until today, you'd have a nice little 116% return, which is okay. I mean, it kind of beats the market, doesn't it? So we'll go there. Okay, so what are the 6 different occasions in which you can probably find a 10 bagger? I'll give you the 6, and I'd like you to pay attention, especially to the last one, because it's very risky. Okay, but for everything else, I'm gonna explain to you what has happened before in charts. And for the last one, I'm going to tell you what I think might happen in the future with a few different stories. And the point of all this is not for you to get even more overwhelmed with possibilities. It's for you to decide what you think you're capable of holding. There are some companies here that I look at the chart, I'm jealous. I have FOMO too. And I take a deep breath and I say to myself, you know what? It wouldn't have worked out if I had bought it, because I would have sold it before it became a 10 bagger, right? And there are other companies that I look at and I'm like, that was an easy bet. And that's a bet I can make over and over again. And that is not because some companies are better than others, which we can go on a whole talk about this, but it has a lot more to do with your personality, your capabilities as an investor, and the time that you devote to this and how deep you go into research, et cetera, et cetera. So the number 1, not in any order, occasion where you can find a 10 bagger is a political shift. Now, pay attention to this. Every time I give you an occasion, it's not because it will happen. It's because the market thinks it will happen. This whole industry, as well as any other type of investment, moves up, down, and sideways based on what people think and believe will happen in the future. It's not because it has happened, because then it's already priced in, but it's the hope that something will happen that will change the situation. This is a company called Military Metals, and it's an antimony company. What is antimony? What does it do? Why do we need it? Well, we need it for military purposes. What you need to know is that this is one of the metals that China decided to curb the exports of, decided to restrict to the United States, and it very quickly, as well as being very, very widely promoted, that's important, became a very quick 10-bagger. So that's one situation. When a country says that they're going to do something, then there's this expectation of, okay, money is going to move somewhere. Where do we move before that wave comes? Another political one, I love this one. This is one of these projects that really should get built. And you should study this one because it's cyclical, it happens over and over again. Northern Dynasty is one of the sweetest deposits in the world. Copper, gold, silver, whatever, you name it, they have it. It's massive, it's absolutely massive. It's in Alaska, and it may never get built because it may interfere with salmon fishing in the area. So they've had very serious permitting issues forever. But Trump comes into office, or it seems like Trump is going to come into office. So you see very clearly, 2016, boom, 10-bagger. That happened along with promotion of the stock. There's a thing here. And then 2020 happened. Boom. There are changes happening to the permitting process, the expectation that changes will happen, and it runs again. Now, believe it or not, if you take a look, I didn't put the 2025 trading, but if you look it up, it's running again because Trump is coming back. And there's this expectation that they're going to get permitted, they're going to get permitted, they're going to get permitted, and then the stock runs. This is a great stock. But do realize that for this particular thing, the political reason, don't overstay your welcome. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. There's also the second opportunity, which is a jurisdiction shift. Now, Newfoundland was really a region that wasn't so hot for modern mining until the leadership there decided that they needed it for economic reasons. And they actually reworked their mining code and did enough for our industry to look at it again and think, we do actually have good minerals. There's lots of gold there. We'll take a stab at it. And then in 2022, they had absolutely record requests for permitting. And during that run, you have Newfound Gold Corp, which happens to be, a company that went there, just absolutely claimed the hell out of it, got a bunch of land. They did find the goods. Whether they stick together is another matter, but quick 10-bagger there because all of a sudden a jurisdiction that wasn't so welcome to mining became welcome to mining. And even the expectation that they would immediately bring a re-rate to all the companies involved in this area. There's also the opportunity for a discovery. Now, I'm going to tell you that if you take all the 10-baggers that happen in any year, the highest amount of companies that became 10-baggers are going to be under this category. I find it one of the trickiest categories, and every time I try to play it, I lose money. But I'm going to tell you how it works. So basically, a company is onto something that is very sizable, and you can figure that out talking to the companies. And you try to gauge what they're looking for. And if you're like me, you know nothing about geology to this day, you write down what they say, and then you throw it up on ChatGPT and you ask, what in the world is this? Does this usually create a large, high-grade mine? Is this a smaller footprint mine? Like, what similar minds to this project are out there? Are they producing? Are they not? What jurisdiction are they in? And then you can gauge who is actually elephant hunting versus people who are, doing brownfield exploration, which you kind of already know what's what, and you're just maybe bringing it up to modern standards. And then you have a discovery hole. When you have a discovery hole, then you have to sit back, and then you have to figure out, okay, is this likely to be a one-off or not? So there is some magic words that people throw around, like a porphyry. If a company looks like it has discovered a porphyry, that's usually very, very well received by the market because they're extremely large. And they tend to be a little bit lower grade. So if you hit a porphyry and it's high grade, people start doing the math and you're like, oh my gosh, if it's close to surface, which is unusual. I know this through the AI, by the way. It's like I didn't ask anybody. AI tells you all these things. Then you know that the market is going to expect this to get much, much bigger. So one discovery hole opens up your eyes, and then you think, okay, maybe there's more to this. But then you have to get the pricing right. You have to get your entry point right, which I never get right. I always chase these things, and then they end up not following through. Sometimes you need a few campaigns in order to make it work. Same happened here with Awali. They've come right down, but this is a legitimate discovery that they've made. High grade. High grade is the buzzword. It's not a buzzword, it's a real reason for people to be excited about something. There are discoveries that are made and either the intercept isn't long enough or it's not high grade enough. So, okay, how do we figure out what is good enough and what doesn't really make the cut? I've been leveraging AI in a very interesting way when it comes to that. Like now I'm in the business, and so I know like what's what. But if you're new to this, I know there are a lot of like new people here. If you ask ChatGPT what's good and bad, or Claude, whatever tool, what's good and bad, they don't really understand good or bad. Like that's subjective, too black and white. You can ask ChatGPT things such as, how many mines are there in this region within this commodity that are mining at this grade? And because producers, they put up results and financials, are they mining at a profit? Things of that nature, right? To sniff it out. And then slowly you're gonna get a real feel for what is what in the mining space if you don't have that knowledge. Now, another occasion to find a 10-bagger is a cycle bounce. This is my favorite because you're gonna walk these halls and you're gonna hear to a lot of smart people say that, the market isn't that great, and we're kind of in the dumps. And we've been saying that for a long time, for many years. And now it gets quiet in the downturn, and then it gets awkwardly quiet. It gets awkwardly quiet because you're tired of repeating yourself. Oh, hey, we're coming back, we're gonna come back next year, this year, whatever, this year is gonna be different. That's when you invest. Not when it's just quiet. When it's awkwardly quiet, when people are sick and tired of speaking about the same thing. Case in point, I'm up here. Everybody knows me through one commodity. Can anybody guess what? Uranium, right? I'm not here to talk about uranium. I'm just gonna leave it at that. You guys are smart. You'll figure it out. So, actually, let me go back to this real quick. Cycle bounce is basically when people like the commodity again. They like the sector again. And they can bid up the prices of usually whatever has somewhat of a proven resource. So what I like to do is when any commodity is down in the dumps, nobody likes it, nobody talks about it, it's boring, everybody's lost money. You look at the chart and it looks like it's dead, the patient has died, it's flatlined. That's when I like to come in, buy it, make sure that the management team isn't just burning cash crazy every month. They're going to hold on to the asset. The asset's going to look good when it comes back, because when it comes back, everybody's like, hey, these guys have a lot of pounds in the ground. They don't talk about the economics. pounds in the ground, it's ounces in the ground, and all that. That comes back. But it comes back when you have something to show for. And so these companies that, become hot when they make a discovery, and then maybe they're just drilling something that is not in vogue anymore. And then you can wait it out a little bit, hold on to it. Hopefully they won't dilute you to high heavens. And then when the cycle comes back, you make your money by this. Like, it's very easy to do a double or a triple, and you can do 2 triples very easily and get something similar to a 10 bagger when the cycle comes back. And we're, in my opinion, long overdue another cycle pop. There's also development stories, right? Which is something I've just mentioned here. This company, Encore, is actually a company I held. I bought it in 2018 or 2019. Very cheap. This is when the patient had died. You see that bottom there? I love that chart formation. Obviously, I didn't have the second half here formed yet, but I could see that the management team had done it before. They had the experience. They were successful, and they did it through. They had 2 massive catalysts along with developing their projects. One is that uranium became the sexy thing again during this time. They were waiting for it. They knew that. They're waiting for uranium to come back to then start doing 2 things. First of all, M&A, and secondly, developing the projects that they either had or did deals around. But if you looked at it beforehand, it was just a bunch of kind of projects with a very competent team, and they were not spending a dime. I'm like, these guys are onto something. They're waiting for the time to come back, and when it does come back, they're going to pounce, and they did. Congrats to all the holders who held for longer than I did. But this was more than a 10 bagger for me, so it was good. Okay, shell game. So we're at the end of it, and the shell game is something that we have to acknowledge that it exists, and the big guys can't touch it. So this is why I love talking about it. A shell is basically a company that has a project so that they remain listed legally, but the projects that they have aren't the thing that's really going to drive the growth. So what they do, they're holding on, they're maybe cleaning up some debt and looking for a new management, but they're looking for a new project to bring in and then do something more interesting about it. So the shell game is interesting because you'd never realize if you haven't been around for years that this industry, at least the venture side of it, the juniors, they are moved not by companies but by groups of people that have many different companies. There isn't enough talent to go around for us to have really great companies, and so what happens is you have a really good geo. That good geo is going to service 3, 5, 6 companies within a group of people who are all buddies. Let's face this is true. You want them to be buddies because you want them to get along. And then they use the same geo, they use the same lawyers, they use the same whatnot, and you'll find that some groups are extremely successful. And if a group is successful and they have within their portfolio, which they advertise on their websites, a company that has not worked like this one, I invested in this one. So okay, I talked about Encore, I did really well, it was like a 50 bagger. This one, I also invested in this one, so it's not all fun and games. And this one is less than $1 million market cap. And they belong to the Inventa Capital Group. These guys, the Inventa Group doesn't mess around. And I don't think this is gonna stay down here forever. I don't know that there's something going on. But if management starts to buy stock at this level, I would really look into getting back. And so look at different groups and see if there's any group that you like to follow. Sometimes it just works by buying a little bit of everything that they touch because they know better. And last one is a funny one. It's also a shell, a Power One group. This one is impossible to buy. If you can buy this, it's almost guaranteed to make you something. They have this up on their website. It's basically an empty shell with a little bit of cash. And when they do launch, you can see the track record on the website of Power One Group, Pat Capel, and team. These are very large companies when they do find a new project. So that's it. These are some of the ideas, some of the different categories. I hope that there was something there that you thought, this is cool, maybe I could do this. And with that, I'm gonna leave you with the next big rush, which is my free newsletter. If you'd like to know what's happening on a daily basis with news, little companies, and you can also follow me on Twitter and on YouTube. I hope you learned something, and I hope that you take that and go out there and maybe pick something and kill it. Thank you.